Life, hanging out with you inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and we are so happy to be here with you as we get to witness the return of Papa Joe. That's right, PJ is back in the building, and we are excited to have him back here on the show. Inside of these Cafe Kubal studios, you know how to fill your cup up, right? You head off to Cafe Kubal and you support local in Central and Upstate New York. So make sure you go to 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street 2, as well as 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York, off to 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and their giant behemoth of a brown-striped building with their double-decker cafe. And, of course, you can go to their drive-thru at the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, which is famous in the history of our community at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. So make sure you head out there today. And of course, if you're like Papa Joe and you're out of state, you can go to cafekubal.com and you can have the coffee delivered to you. Cafe Kubal, Kubal.com. So make sure you head online and check that out as well. Big time show coming up for you, and we have a trio of fantastic guests, and we're starting something on this broadcast that is very near and dear to my heart. So we're going to start things off with Papa Joe inside of What's Poppin' from Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. PJ and I are going to talk about the Jaguars. We're going to talk about Major League Baseball. There's a Gator who just transferred to Syracuse, Rutrow, orange and blue to orange and blue. We'll talk about all of that, and we'll have some fun here on the broadcast with many different topics, including those. And then in hour number 2 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, I will start off my Commissioner Central. Those of you that know, last year I had something called Commissioner Corner, and I spoke with leaders from around the country. Well, we're going to continue that, go even deeper into it, and try to expand our reach even more so. And we start things off with Commissioner Central, with SoCon Commissioner Jim Schaus joining us at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, as well as at 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time being joined by the Big South Commissioner Kallander. And what we're going to be talking about with these commissioners from around the country is going to be the strength of their conferences as well as the evolution of their conferences. We'll also be talking with each commissioner about name, image, and likeness, aka NIL. We'll be talking with them about the transfer portal, as well as the state of collegiate athletics as the NCAA tries to figure out their identity, and we all move forward from here. So, commissioners and executive directors from all over the country are going to be converging on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And today we'll start things off with the SoCon Commissioner, Jim Schaus, then the Big South Commissioner, Kallander. Tomorrow, good friend of mine, Mike Oresco of the American Athletic Conference, joins me right before the annual meetings for the American Athletic Conference. And coming up on Monday, Ted Gumbart comes back to us from the A-Sun. So a great group of fantastic commissioners and executive directors going to be joining the show as we start off today making history with Commissioner Central, where you get to hear from the leaders of the country on what they think about everything that's going on in collegiate athletics. You get a bunch of different perspectives on the topics that are interesting us today on the world of collegiate athletics. And I am very, very honored and privileged that the conferences have been so kind in helping to make this happen, because it's an idea of mine and they helped to bring it to life. So a big thanks to the SoCon and the Big South who will be joining us today. With that being said, the man, the myth, the living legend, the go-so, the man who loves Jameis Winston and is the leader of the Winstonites fan club, Papa Joe. PJ, how we doing?
I love it, the Winston fan club. Jameis, my man. Good morning, Daniel. Yes. I've been 3 weeks out of the saddle, buddy. It's been a tough road to hoe. It's a terrible surgery, and the rehab for a 75-year-old man is absolutely brutal. So, but I do have to say that the knee is responding well to treatment, and I'm actually walking. With my hip surgery, which was I had 2 surgeries done in 60 days. I had the left hip replaced, and I had the right knee replaced. And after that, and after the rehab and everything, I can actually walk, biped. I can actually walk.
Yeah.
Not very strong, but I can walk without my scooter or without my stroller or without my cane. And I'm really pleased about that. It's been such a long time. When you get older, you're saddled with a lot of pain that you don't tell people about, but they can see that you have issues, and if you don't address the issues, you're still going to be a crinkly old man. And Mary and I have made a pact with each other that in the course of a calendar year, I was going to have the 3 major surgeries done: the hip, the right knee, and the right shoulder. Replaced them. Got 2 of them done. The third one is going to be a bitch, but I don't know when I'm going to do it, but my body needs a rest right now because they have that much trauma go through your body when you're at my age. It was just a little bit too much. I wasn't too smart with that, but I was in such a hurry to get everything done to feel better that I wanted to take a chance, and it turned out good for us. So everyone worried about me, thank you very much for the prayers. My man Greg, thanks for everything, bud. And I'm okay.
Yeah, and I know you're working. I know you're trying to get better. Listen, you've always been a person who takes cars and fixes them up and gets them right, and you're working on a million different things at once. You're working on the paint job, you're working on the seats, you're working on the engine. So, I mean, it's what you did to yourself, essentially. You tried to repair the car and do a bunch of things at the same time. So, make sure that you take that time to rest and you take that time to relax, because we got to keep Papa Joe around here for a very long time, because, there's nothing, and I mean this, I'm not saying this because you're on the air, there is nobody like you. And, a father figure in my life, someone who I call dad as well, and someone who just truly embodies a lot of great things and good things, and someone I can always count on, and for years have been able to spend a lot of quality time with. So I'm honored, I'm privileged to have you and Joey and of course Miss Mary in our lives, and it means the world to me. So we got to keep you around, PJ, because I love our conversations, love our talks, love our laughs, love our movie nights, love the sauce, and love making sure that I'm always staying fresh on my Latin when it comes to the Mass.
Well, thank you, Daniel. That's good. I do have to talk about before we get started. I mean, so many things have happened in the last 3 weeks in the sports field. Of course, the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness was just run. And this is my time of year for horse racing right here. When the Belmont meet opened a couple of weeks ago, it runs through the summer. Then you get Saratoga, runs through another 6 weeks in the summer. Then Belmont and their fall meet another 6 weeks, another 6 weeks. So this is first class racing. This is the best racing in the world for this time. It's Belmont, Saratoga, Belmont. So if you're, go down to your local OTB and see the best horses. Belmont, Saratoga. I noticed that nothing's the same in horse racing, because when you got a horse like Rich Strike, who is, unbeknownst to anyone, barely got in the field, couldn't get out of his own way, yet he slips up the rail and wins the Kentucky Derby at something like 80-1 odds. I mean, it's a feel-good story, because the guy, the trainer, Reed, he's had a tough go-around. Actually, he was at Keeneland a couple of years ago when he lost all his stable at a fire. So the guys helped him out, gave him some horses, gave him some money. Now he's back up. Now he's got a Kentucky Derby winner, so good for him. And the guy that I follow most in horse racing is Chad Brown, of course, from New York. And his horse early voting won the Preakness. Both of these events were well attended by hundreds of thousands of people, and I'm glad to see that, because I don't want to see the sport die. It is dying as it is, because no one's going to the track, because they're doing the casinos and the inter-track wagering and all this other kind of stuff. There's still a lot of money being bet, but it's not at the track. Yeah. And it's good to see, thousands of people with their hats and their drinks. It's just a ball watch that. So I'm glad to see that the 2 of the Triple Crown races are out of the way. Now we got a third one coming up in the Belmont Stakes in a couple of weeks. We're going to see what that goes. When you gamble on horses, you can never tell what a horse is going to do in a given situation. You always have the jockey to lead on. The trainer tells the jockey, will do this and this and this. But when a jockey's out there and he's trying to figure things out himself, but he got 20 horses in the field, the jockey for Rich Strike, Sandy Leon, nondescript jockey. He bounces along the minor racetracks. He doesn't race at Aqueduct or Belmont or Gulfstream or anything like that. So what does the guy do? He sneaks away on the rail. The rail opens up and he comes plowing through for a really upset victory. It was good to see because he's another guy that just bounces around too. But now he's a Kentucky Derby winner, and so is the trainer. Now, when you get to early voting is part of Chad Brown's stable, and he was actually the second favorite going into the Preakness, and I actually had him the best, and 5-1, which is a good odds. He's another horse that is kind of a little fluky in the morning to deal with.
Yeah.
But when he's on the track, he's hell, and he was that. He pulled Jose Ortiz, the jockey, pulled him to the front, and they stayed on the pace the whole way. Jose had perfect control out of his horse. No one was going to catch him. An early front-running victory, and a well-deserved for Chad Brown and his stable. So that's a lot of horse racing, Daniel, for me to watch. So it was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, let's face it, I didn't have a lot to do. I couldn't do anything. So I'm rehabbing on the hip. Then I had the surgery on the knee, and then I'm rehabbing on the surgery. So a lot of times you just watch TV and look at baseball, watch racing, stuff like that. So it's fun, and I enjoy it. So that's your horse racing update, Daniel. I'll have more next week.
No, but it's great because it's funny because Greg, who you shouted out, and I'm sure that means the world to Greg, he said, PJ, welcome back, PJ. Glad you're on the rebound. Love to hear the positive news. So good to see that. Definitely people that have been worried about you. And the first thing that he said to me, one of the first things that he said was, I want to hear about horse racing. And I didn't even ask you about it. And here we are with a full dose of horse racing. So like minds, smart minds think alike, I guess is where we are today. I do have to ask you about this, PJ. There's a lot of things that have gone on, but the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher saga, right? Name, image, and likeness. The thought that there's the reality that there's really no rules for this thing, hardly any rules. Each state has its own thing. There's states' rights. There's different things that you have to go through, and on top of all of that, the name, image, and likeness allows for boosters and really anybody to break the rules because there are very few rules. It seems like it's wide open. Nick Saban had made the comment that Texas A&M bought all their players that gave them the number one recruiting class, and Jimbo Fisher responded by not saying Nick Saban's name, but by saying a lot of things about him and basically like go back and look at what he does and look at how he does it. And it spilled out into the public. And to me, Nick Saban attacking his offensive coordinator from 2001 to 2004, Jimbo Fisher, when they were at LSU, puts him in a situation where Jimbo responded, and he responded a lot. And I've interviewed both of these guys, as you know. I don't feel that it was smart. Number one, I don't think it's good to publicly defame anybody. Number two, if you have dirty laundry, Nick, you just attack somebody that used to fold and wash that laundry. So what do you think about it?
Well, Jimbo was always on the edge when he was at Florida State. He's another one of these guys, these coaches that he would coach some what I call edge players that really maybe shouldn't deserve to be at Division I because they have some behavior problems or some legal problems. And now he's going to Texas A&M doing the same thing. I don't blame Nick Saban for doing it. He probably shouldn't have said everything. But what you need to do, Nick, is beat him on the field. If you can't beat him on the field, then he's going to get inside your head. But I'm a big Nick Saban fan, and there's nothing that he does wrong or is out of character. I mean, he's had a top flight program for 10 years, whether it's at LSU or at Alabama. And Jimbo's got to learn to beat him on the field. And when he can do that and keep his recruits, maybe he needs to settle down a little bit. And I noticed that one of those recruits left Texas A&M's class and went to Alabama's class with a 5-star athlete. I can't remember which one it was. So, the wheels are starting to turn now. And if Nick can get inside of Jimbo's head, he got him half beat on the field. So I don't think Nick is wrong. As a matter of fact, Steve Spurrier said almost the same thing. Jimbo is going to do what Jimbo wants to do in Texas. And if he wants to buy his players, quote unquote, by giving them these, lead them to these deals, these sponsor deals, well, that's his business. But he should have just kept his mouth shut. He just shouldn't have responded to Saban. Let it roll over. Don't worry about it. And then the round one goes to Saban. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's funny because, here's Nick Saban saying that Texas A&M bought all their players, and then a former Texas A&M decommitted and is now coming to Alabama, Eli Holstein. So, does that, by saying, well, Texas A&M bought all their players, well, now this Texas A&M guy is going to Alabama. So, now does Jimbo turn around and say, well, you bought him back, you took him back. So it just seems like a very ridiculous thing to be doing in public. But we live in the world of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. I'm going to talk about it with both of the commissioners in the second hour. This is a very interesting world that we're living in today in collegiate athletics, because the model of being a college student athlete is not really there. And it's more about making money. It's about free agency. It's about, if I go to this state, I can pay this tax on my name, image, and likeness. If I go to this school, I can get more money than this school. So what do you think name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal are doing to collegiate athletics?
Well, it's a mess. It's a mess. The last 6 months has been crazy. The NCAA has opened it up, and the kids are taking advantage of it. They're smart. They're taking advantage of it. Now, if Jimbo Fisher has 85 guys on his team and all 85 guys have got a sponsor, good for them. Let's face it, for the last 10 years or so, college football has not been the amateur college football. It's the mini pros. We know that. Any fan that knows that. They go to Alabama, or they go to Florida, or they go to Georgia because they can get a good image or likeness deal, and they can get to the pros quicker if they go to Tennessee or Kentucky or somewhere else. That's all it is. They don't care. They don't care if they go to school or that. So they go for 2 years, redshirt year. They're there for 2 years, and after their sophomore year, they're gone. They got their money, and they're going to go to the pros with no education. So I don't like it, but that's what we have to deal. And then if you're smart, you tell your staff, but listen, that's what the NCAA has given us. Let's go out and get it. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and listen, the players have allegedly been paid for decades upon decades, and now they've made it legal to pay players just to do it in a unique way. So all these things that have been happening in the background, I can't tell you how many stories I was told made me sick. I didn't want to hear any more. So, to hear the schools that were involved and the people that were in, the teams that were involved, and this, that, and the other, the reality of it all to me is that it's really, really sad and frustrating to hear this stuff and to know that, this is the world we live in. But essentially what they did now is they said, hey, all these things that have been happening anyways, let's just make them legal. And that's the part that really... I don't know. To me, it's ridiculous to pretend that something is something it's not, which is what the NCAA has been doing forever. But now to say, okay, well, you know what? Now you can give a handshake with $500 in your hand or $5,000 in your hand, and you can call it a deal. You can call it a name, image, and likeness deal, when in actuality it's just a booster. So it's sad. It's real. There's no rules for it. It doesn't make any sense. And, as somebody else put it to me, they said, well, Dan, I could call it the Wild Wild West, but I think calling it the Wild Wild West had more rules. So That's where we sit right now. Jump into the NFL, PJ. I want to take a look at the roster of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've made some moves in the offseason. We've talked about some things. You can feel free to add anything you're hearing down there in North Florida. But as it is right now, we have a bunch of people that are coming back onto this team that they gave a lot of help, right? Jamal Agnew, who is a great return specialist, is coming back. Former Syracuse standout defensive back is playing strong safety Andre Sisco after getting some time out there. Tyson Campbell, who came from Ohio State, we get to see what he can do now. Shaquille Griffin is back, and his leadership was well appreciated coming from the Seattle Seahawks. Josh Allen finally has broken away from being the other Josh Allen when he took down Buffalo's Josh Allen when Jacksonville went up against him. So, all of that is coming back here. We'll see what Cam Robinson, Juwan Taylor, and Tyler Shatley can do as each of them are back here onto the team. Marvin Jones said that he was a leader in the receiving corps. We'll see if that continues. Laquan Treadwell has done some good things. James Robinson is James Robinson. And Trevor Lawrence hopefully will now be able to start his NFL career without a dramatic coach that cares more about himself than anybody else. So here we are in Jacksonville, and what are your thoughts on the Jaguars?
Well, the news coming out of there is very sparse. There's not a lot happening. Of course, the OTAs have started, and I did notice that one of the quotes is Doug Pedersen. He likes OTAs. He likes what's happening at Jacksonville. But, how many times did we say this, Daniel, beginning of the year? We like the Jaguars this year. They look strong on defense. They look strong on offense, special teams, and that we think they're going to do well. And then they lay an egg. But I'm saying it this year. It is different this year, folks. We can do better, and we will do better. I look at Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Engram coming as receivers for Trevor Lawrence. And look at this kid. We know that Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. We know that. So does NFL. The other teams know that. If they can keep the kid upright and he can spread the ball around, there's going to be a real scary offense, considering you talked about the guys that are coming back. What I like to see is James Robinson, of course, and then Travis Etienne coming back off a bad injury. Boy, those two guys are dynamite. I mean, dynamite. Travis Etienne can do anything, probably as good, if not better, than Robinson. But both of these guys healthy and ready to go. You got a split backfield like that, and you got these new receivers coming in. You got the new guys on the offensive line, Sheriff, and those guys. This could be a really good season for us. But I'm not ready to say that yet. All I want to do is talk about what's happening that I see coming out of Jacksonville. Not much. There's a linebacker, Chad Muma, signed his rookie contract. Yeah. That's about all the news that's coming out. And I don't even know if he's going to make the team, this kid. I think he was in the top 70 pick. I don't remember. It was the second or third round or something like that. But look, Trevor Lawrence is going to have a lot of weapons, and the defense is going to be set now with two scary guys on the edges rushing. It's going to be fun, and I want to see more coming out of Jacksonville. With the OTAs, I mean, what do? They just mess around, throw the ball around. They don't hit each other or anything like that. And they just do the exercise and do the lifting and stuff. So it just can't be around. So, it's good to see their attitude going forward. That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, where's this team going to be as we move forward? I mean, listen, the Indianapolis Colts are not looking. I mean, they have some weapons, but you got another quarterback. The Colts, since Andrew Luck's 2 weeks before the season, retiring at the age of 29 years old, it has only been a carousel of quarterbacks in Indianapolis. And in Houston, they have all types of problems there, although I am excited to see Davis Mills play. So, for me, the Jacksonville Jaguars don't have any excuse to be in the top two in this division, and they always beat themselves more than anybody else beats them. So my hope is that this team can correct it, get it right, and as we get closer, we'll have more news on them and more to talk about when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But for now, it's good to see that they're at least creating some depth where they didn't have it before and doing some things that needed to be done and bringing back guys like my guy Raquel Armstead. So excited to see that and excited to see what they could do. See if Zay Jones can finally really have a strong career for himself after I covered him at East Carolina. And, what can Laquan Treadwell do is he seems to have a good relationship with Trevor Lawrence, and with all these players coming in, including Trayvon Walker, what can they bring to the team, and how will they provide, hopefully, some immediate help? Brandon Sheriff as one of the guards on the team. Andrew Norwell went off to Washington. Brandon Sheriff came from Washington to Jacksonville. So we'll see if this time this works out, because Norwell never really stayed completely healthy in Jacksonville and didn't seem to work out too many things. So a lot of good stuff to come, a lot of hopeful things to come. And coming up after this fast break, Papa Joe and I will discuss the world of baseball and what's going on inside of Major League Baseball. PJ, and I on the Baseball Diamond right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You are watching and listening to where sports truly meets that thing called life. And I am so happy and honored to have you here, as always, every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of these Cafe Kubal studios. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicoli's.com. That's myaviccollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying. In the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? to be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life, and always happy to be here with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal, where you can enjoy their awesome coffee, teas. I love the chai, get it all the time, all different flavors that I throw in there, vanilla, as well as brown sugar, lavender, pumpkin, so many good things at Cafe Kubal. Make sure you head out there today, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. And, of course, at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and their giant behemoth of a brown stripe building, their double-decker cafe with an all-new expanded parking lot, and, of course, at the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners, where you can go to their drive-thru and dine inside at Cafe Kubal with their amazing sandwiches as well as their incredible breakfasts and treats that are available at every location. So make sure you head out to Cafe Kubal today, support local, and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you their way. With that being said, we continue the conversation with PJ. PJ here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. And before we hop into the world of baseball, want to get Papa Joe's thoughts on a couple different things here. Colin Kaepernick has an opportunity. And PJ, what do you think?
Well, this is a gamble on Las Vegas' part. I mean, the kid hasn't played for 4 years, but he looks the part. I mean, he's always kept himself in good shape. We were talking at the break that, maybe the league doesn't need the drama for this to come forward like this. I want to hear about what's coming out of the OTAs. I want to see what teams are doing, preparing for their coaches. I don't want to hear about Colin Kaepernick trying to make Las Vegas his team. I don't want to hear that. I wish him luck. Certainly he deserves an opportunity. It's quite evident and obvious that he's been blackballed over the years. And for whatever reason, the Raiders are doing this, and I don't know why. They got a hell of a quarterback that takes them a long way. So, this is really a sore subject for people, and I don't think we need to talk about it. We probably should, but I don't think we need to talk about it because it's not football. If he makes the team and tries to make the team and tries to play, it's a different story. But he hasn't made a team, and I don't know what to say other than that. I just don't think we need the drama.
I mean, my thing is there's been so many pieces around this, and there's been so many issues with this, and what is it and what is it not, and there's been so many things that have gone on in these last few years, and yes, being blackballed, there's a ton of quarterbacks in the NFL that I think Colin Kaepernick could compete with and potentially beat out. And so that's not fair that he's not getting an opportunity. I don't agree with the NFL's decision to do that. I don't like the drama. I don't like, these things that have gone on. There was, stuff out there about there's just so many different stories. So the reality of it all is, does he deserve to be in the NFL at least as a backup? Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, I think now people forget when he exited the NFL, he had a 49% completion percentage. People forget that. They forget that he blew a Super Bowl that they should have won against the Ravens. So it's not like he's this amazingly incredible quarterback that's undeniably great, but he's serviceable and he should be on teams. I look at quarterbacks around the country. I look at Geno Smith. I look at, and this is not me trying to knock anybody. I look at Geno Smith. I look at Jared Goff. I look at, Mitch Trubisky, and I say to myself, Colin Kaepernick's probably better than those guys, or he's right there with them. So, if they're in the NFL, should he be in the NFL? Yeah. And that's how I would really view this thing. If I can look at Colin Kaepernick and say that up against these players, he should have an opportunity, then he needs to have an opportunity. And the thing is, you bring him in, and if he doesn't do well, he doesn't do well. The problem with the Colin Kaepernick saga now is if the Raiders don't sign him, the Raiders are bad people. That's the issue that I think people need to get through their heads and knock it off, is that if Colin Kaepernick doesn't make it on the Raiders roster, it's not because of what's going on. Because if they're bringing him in to work him out, they're bringing all of that with them, all of the spotlight, all the things that are going on. Some teams may not want to bring him in because, God forbid, they don't keep him. They don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be called hateful. They don't want to be called mean. They don't want to be called negative. They don't want, all this media to come to them and say, like, you hate Colin Kaepernick and whatever. So I understand a team doing that because they did that with Tim Tebow for totally different reasons. Tim Tebow's belief in God, I feel like, made a lot of teams not want to deal with it, because if they didn't keep him, then people are like, oh, well, why would you do that to him? And look at what he does for the community. And so when you're thinking about bringing on a lightning rod to your team, the unfortunate part of that is if you choose not to bring them in, then all of a sudden there's all this giant backlash and hoopla. So I want Colin Kaepernick to have an opportunity, but I also want the 32 NFL franchises to have the opportunity to say, hey, we worked him out. He didn't fit. It has nothing to do with his color. It has nothing to do with what he stands for. He just didn't fit our team. So, teams should be able to do that. He shouldn't be blackballed. They should be able to make a decision. He should be in the NFL, in my opinion, but he's got to be in the right fit. And maybe the Raiders are, and maybe they're not. But if they're not, I don't want to see people putting all this hate stuff out to the Raiders.
That's right. That's true. So good luck, Colin. Good luck.
So with that being said, we stay. Hey, I know you're ready for base. I got to hit you with this, though. I got to hit you with it.
I got my league standing, and ready to talk about a few things, but.
I got to hit you with this first, though. From orange and blue to orange and blue, Florida Gator quarterback Carlos Del Rio Wilson has now committed to Syracuse in the transfer portal. So the Syracuse Orange, who just a couple seasons ago got Chris Bleich, the offensive lineman from the Florida Gators, have now gotten another Gator to the Orange during the Dino Babers era. Another Florida Gator is now on Syracuse's roster in quarterback Carlos Del Rio Wilson. What do you think?
Well, he didn't do much for Florida. He never really got a chance to play that much.
Yeah.
Emory Jones took over the quarterback job for 4 years there. Now Anthony Richardson is going to take it over, and so there really wasn't a spot for him. Not unusual in these days. I guess these kids can bounce around where they want to. They say, "Oh, I'm not playing here. I want to go to the transfer portal," and then someone else picks them up. So it's not unusual for these guys to wind up with 3 teams in 3 years. So I wish them luck. I don't know if it's going to help you guys at all, but good for Syracuse.
Yeah, they bring him in, they do it, and the thing is, when Syracuse fans see Florida Gators transferring to Syracuse, it piques the interest in the program. Now the guys, like we talked about with Jacksonville, the interest is piqued, but now we need to actually see positive things come of this. The interest is piqued, but now it's time to perform. And, peak performance, so to speak. So let's see what they can do. Chris Bleich, I'm a fan. He's gone through injuries. Hopefully he'll be back and ready to go at guard for the Orange on the offensive line. I'm a big fan of Chris Bleich. He's a faithful guy, and I love that about him. And Carlos Del Rio Wilson, welcome to the family, and let's see what you got. With that being said, I am now ready to unleash the beast that we call Papa Joe on the diamond of Major League Baseball. Go ahead.
I like that. Yeah, good luck. Dino's going to have a good team this year, I hope. So let's hope so. Well, obviously a lot has happened 3 weeks since I haven't been around, but we know that the baseball season has started. It's now rolling pretty good. I'll start with the American League. I'm not going to get really choppy here. I'm just going to give you my opinions and where the standings are. I'm going to give you earned run averages, home runs, RBIs, batting averages, stuff like that. So, but a good sports fan is probably going to know what I'm talking about anyway. We go to the American League, and we go to the East, and the beast, as we say, is the New York Yankees with a 30-13 record. They lead the entire major league in that category. They are playing extremely good ball. They have one of the best pitchers in baseball, in Garrett Cole. Now they got some guys that are backing them up with Severino, Chad Green, Kellyon, Sears. Those guys are pitching well. And Adonis Chapman, their closer, the big lefty, throws 100 miles an hour. He's on ARL. So, they're doing it, not smoking mirrors, but they're just hitting the hell out of the ball. And that's what the Yankees do. They hit the hell out of the ball. But they got the Tampa's right behind them, 4.5 games. Toronto's at 7 behind. Boston's 9.5. Baltimore's way out of it. So the Yankees look like they're there for the duration. I think they got enough pitching. They certainly have enough hitting. But these big guys are brittle. Stanton is like Mike Stanton's on the IR again. He hurt his ankle swinging at a pitch last night. I saw it. I was watching at the game. The guy's 6'5", 240 pounds, and he hurts his ankle swinging at a pitch. I don't know. He and Judge, they're big guys. They could be tight ends. I don't know. They just don't stay healthy. American League Central, Minnesota's leading at 27-17. They're playing good ball. They certainly needed Carlos Carrera from Houston, which is a big pickup for them. Good. White Sox are 5 behind. Cleveland 6.5 behind. Detroit and Kansas City are out of it. AL West, you got the Astros at 28-16. What can you say about them? They've been there for 5 or 6 years, won a world championship. Now, one of the best pitchers that ever played and is pitching, again, Justin Verlander, is carrying these guys. Verlander is in his late 30s. He's got 3 Cy Young awards. He's just killing them. My Angels are 1 game back. Mike Trout is finally playing like Mike Trout. Finally, they got some pitching. I'm happy about that. Texas is 8.5 out. And Seattle and Oakland are out of it. When you go to the National League East, your Mets are 29-17, playing good ball, good pitching. Atlanta, 7.5 out. So is Philly, 7.5 out. Miami, Washington, out of it. I do have to say there are some surprises this year. Before I keep going, I'll go through the rankings and then come back to it. National League Central, my Brewers are 27-16. St. Louis is 3 games behind. Chicago, Pitt, and Cincinnati are out of it already.
Yeah.
The West, the Dodgers are 29-14 with their vaunted pitching staff. The Padres are only 1 game behind. San Francisco's 5 behind. Arizona is only 7 behind. Colorado's out of it. So, when you go back and think about these things, you realize that sometimes one season doesn't beget another one. The 2 biggest surprises I've seen this year are the Yankees playing as well they have and pitching as well as they have. They have 30 wins. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But what's more surprising is Atlanta starting out 20-23. They only won 20 games, lost 23. They won the World Series. Come on, what's up? They lose Freddie Freeman, of course, went to the Dodgers, and they didn't need any help over there, but that's where he signed for big money.
Yeah. So
Atlantic, one of the teams that just surprised me that they're not doing anything. So, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. And I got stats. We can go into stats in a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting season, right? How things start out, and it's such a long season of 162 games, as I've spoken about before, that being in a situation like this, your team could look like they're totally out of it, and then they bounce right back, right? Colorado was in good footing. Now they're last out of 5 teams in the West. My Arizona Diamondbacks at the time we're talking are 23-22. They have a winning record. Let's end the season right now. I got a winning record. Let's go. So, but, you know, these things, I mean, the Brewers are doing what they're doing. The Mets have started out strong. Copy and paste that from the last few seasons. The Angels that you always talk about spending a ton of money on players but having nothing to show for it, they're 27-18 right now behind the Astros by just a couple. The Twins are doing well, and the Yankees have started off strong. The Yankees, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the Yankees have the most wins in Major League Baseball right now. 31-13 is their record. They're above the Rays, the Blue Jays, the Sox. And one of the things, Old Faithful, that always stays true is the Baltimore Orioles are always in last place of the AL East. So, from here, PJ, biggest surprise? Are you surprised that the Yankees have the most wins in Major League Baseball? Are you surprised that the Mets have started off strong again? I mean, the Dodgers are in first place of the NL West, so that makes sense as well. And let's try to make sense of your Angels a little bit, because they spend a lot of money and they don't always have a lot to show for it.
True. Well, the Yankees, I said that it did surprise me. I already knew they could hit. 2 years ago, when they got Anthony Rizzo and Joey Gallo, some of these big, strong guys, I knew they were loading up the lineup. So when you look at the home runs hit, you got Judge is leading with 17 homers. You got Rizzo with 11 homers and Stanton with 11 homers. They're leading the league. Trout has 12 homers. That I'm talking about the Yankees. These 3 guys are just pounding the heck out of the ball. Even though New York's ERA, other than Cole, is still pretty high, they're winning the 10-8 games and the 9-7 games. They're just killing the ball. They have excellent players and excellent hitters. Aaron Boone is having a great time plugging in his lineup. The Mets got Scherzer, and he's pitching as well. Scherzer this year is 5-1 with a 2.554 ERA, so they're going to rely on him a lot, and I would too. So I was going to get into my stats a little bit later, but is there anything else you need to talk about with the standings?
No, you can jump right into your stats. We got a few minutes for that.
Okay. I got, let's start with the hitting. You got J.D. Martinez from Boston. He's leading the American League with a 366 average. Unbelievable. The guy can hit in his sleep. What a steal he was when he came from Colorado. Mike Anderson from Chicago, who the one they got in the dust up there with Josh Donaldson. Donaldson's a jerk. I'm not sure Anderson's in a jerk either, but he's a little sensitive. But he still hits the hell out of the ball. He's hitting 365. And Trout is hitting 368. 328, I should say. I bring Trout up because this year he's ahead in so many statistics. Wins against average, W.A. Arnold, that kind of thing. He's just a dynamite player, and you know he's been my favorite player, and I want to keep it that way. Judge, as I said, is leading the league in home runs. He's got Trout with 12, and Rizzo and Stanton for the Yankees have got 11 each.
Yeah.
You can't, if you can keep beating the heck out of teams 10-5 and 9-3, score a lot of runs, you're going to be okay, even though your ERA for your pitching staff is not that good. RBIs, Ramirez from Cleveland's got 43. He's a hitting machine. He's the one they just signed for 10 years and multi-million-dollar. Stanton's got 35. Judge 34. And Rizzo. These guys hit the ball. They drive and run. And, what can you say about it? I mean, that's what they do. The Yankees have never been about pitching. They've always been about hitting. They got a short right field porch. Guys take a shot at. Heck, my Flagler Field here in St. Augustine is 315 down the line. And you go to Yankee Stadium, it's 315 down the line. So it all is a fly ball. In the National League, you got Manny Machado of San Diego's hitting 368. Machado, we knew was the real deal when he came from Baltimore. Does it all for San Diego, and San Diego's real close to putting it all together. Goldsmith from St. Louis is hitting 344, and he's also got 33 RBIs. Paul Goldsmith is is the glue that keeps it together at St. Louis. St. Louis, of course, has got the three guys that are going to retire, which is Adam Wainwright, the catcher Molina, and you got Albert Pujols. Those three guys are going to retire this year. It'd be nice to see them go out on a run, but I don't think they're that strong enough to do that. The Dodgers Mookie Betts is leading the league with 12 home runs. I never figured that would happen. Betts has always been a good hitter. He was a good hitter for Boston for many years. He comes over to the Dodgers and is doing the same thing. Pete Alonso's got 11 home runs, and he's leading the league with 41 RBIs. So, guys that hit well. When you got a team like the Mets, who always has good hitting, waiting for good pitching, waiting for the groom to come back, always. They seem to put it together with some timely hitting. And Pete Alonso is the kind of guy that you just don't want to. You don't want a face with been a second and third and one out. The manager puts up four fingers and say, "Walk him. I'll load the bases and take my chance with someone else." Pete Alonso was a stud hitter. Pitching. Not surprising that Walker Buehler, Tyson Anderson, and Clayton Kershaw are leading the Dodgers. Buehler 6-1 with a 2.91 ERA. Anderson 5-0 with a 3.30 ERA, and Kershaw 4-0 with a 1.80. They will win by pitching, seriously. And now you got Mookie Betts and you got Justin Turner. You got all these guys can hit too. So the Dodgers, if they don't win their division, it's their own fault. Corbin Burns, for my Brewers, he's got 6 or 7 Ks. He's leading the league there. But there's an amazing stat that I'm going to give you. It just doesn't figure.
Yeah.
Doesn't figure. But it's amazing. We played almost 45 games. Josh Hader from Milwaukee. I spoke about him several times. His ERA is still 0. He has not given up an earned run. 15 games. He's got 15 saves. He pitched 13.2 innings and struck out 21 guys. Now, I'm telling you, people, that's Hall of Fame material right there. But I really encourage you that if the Brewers have played a tight game and he comes in the 8th or the 9th inning, he doesn't pitch but 1 inning. Watch this kid pitch. He's absolutely frightening to face as a left-handed pitcher. The left-handed hitter, you're going to bail out every single time. He comes from the side. He comes low. He comes high. He's got balls that move. He throws at 98. Absolutely scary to watch. And I know he's going to give up some runs, and they may even hit him pretty soon. But he's unreal. He's unreal. Pitching in the American League, you got Verlander with 6-1, 1.22 ERA. If you follow baseball over the years, you know that Justin Verlander was with Detroit for many years, won a couple Cy Young Awards over there, won the Cy Young Award with Houston. He's a multi-talented guy. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's still in his late 30s, 6-1 with a 1.22 ERA. Really tough to follow. Garrett Cole for the Yankees is 4-1, only with a 3.31 average. To see what I'm talking about there. With Cole really should have a 2.5-point ERA, but he doesn't because he's not pitching that well. But he's 4-1. Why? Because the Yankees beat the hell out of the ball and scored 10 runs for him. Kallander from New York is 4-1, 2.95 ERA. Your boy Syndergaard, he used to be with the Mets, is now with the Angels, 4.42 and 3.31 ERA. But there's another surprise this year from the pitching side of it. Chicago White Sox got a kid named Adam Ceasy, 4-2, 4.24 ERA. That's kind of high. Let's face it. But he struck out 71 guys. That's almost 15 per 9 innings.
Yeah.
It's unpretty. Really, really, really nasty. And Romano from Toronto is leading with 14 saves and 2.7 ERA. Not surprising to me to see the Mets are leading their division with pitching, and of course the Dodgers. You've always heard me, probably a redundant thing. You win with pitching and defense. Period. You win with pitching and defense. The Yankees, frankly, they're kind of sorry on defense. They make too many errors, but the Dodgers don't. And if the Dodgers can play the way they're doing it, or pitching holds up, they're going to make it.
That coming from Papa Joe here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Very happy to have you back, PJ. Happy to have this opportunity to do this every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And thank you for your look around the sports world with baseball, football, and everything we've had going on. I would talk with you forever today, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for all you're doing for yourself. You have prayers, well wishes, and a giant support group that is behind you to help you up when you need that help. So just know that you got a bunch of people behind you, loving you and sending you their prayers and well wishes, and we look forward to talking with you soon, and obviously look forward to you being on the men. So you've got the support system, you got a lot of people behind you, and we love you very much.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. I got Greg follows us an awful lot on the show, and I appreciate that. I'm going to give him a trivia question.
Okay.
I got a couple of degrees, but I'm going to give him a trivia question. What's one of my schools I graduated from? It's a tricky question, Greg. A tricky question. You got to think it over. I'll see you next week.
That coming from Papa Joe. PJ, I'll talk to you soon. Take care. That coming from Papa Joe once again, where sports meets that thing called life, from inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. We'll take a quick step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and we will be back here with our beginning of our Commissioner Central series, starting with SoCon Commissioner Jim Schaus right after this fast break, where sports meets life.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvelanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, where sports meets life. Happy to be here with you inside of these Cafe Kubal studios every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and appreciate you so much for being a part of the show here with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So with that being said, very happy to have on the broadcast rejoining us here. He was with us last year around the same time, and that is Jim Schaus, the SoCon commissioner, the Southern Conference commissioner, to start off our Commissioner Central series, where we go around the country getting the thoughts of commissioners and executive directors on this world of collegiate athletics and what's going on, the strength of their specific conferences, the evolution of their conferences, as well as the bigger picture of name, image, and likeness, aka NIL, as well as the transfer portal and where collegiate athletics are heading from here. So with that being said, it is my honor and my privilege to start off this series with Jim Schaus, the SoCon commissioner, as they are coming off celebrating 100 years of existence from 1921 to 2021 and are now stepping into that new century here in 2022. Jim, how are you?
Great, Dan. Thanks.
And I'm happy to have you here, Jim, and happy to be able to spend some time with you. And I wanted to start off first and foremost with that, with the strength of the SoCon. I mean, the Southern Conference has evolved over the years. There's been a lot of changes and things that have happened. There's a rich history of teams that are now, part of schools that are part of other conferences, but how things kind of started regionally. And when we look at that, the fact that, collegiate athletics didn't have as many conferences, they were really to the region that the institution was in. When you see different things happening with realignment and, the Texas and Oklahoma move to the SEC, and then Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF out of the American to the Big 12, and then BYU is no longer independent, and then Conference USA losing 6 to the American, and all these different things that have happened, Division II teams becoming Division I. As these conferences become bigger and bigger, and we see 16 in a conference, 14 in a conference, the SoCon has its history in being that big conference regionally. Do you see at any point that we could see college athletics move back to less conferences that are more regional based and have a bigger membership group, or how do you see that?
It's certainly possible. I think with some of the transformation changes that will take place, in the next 6 to 12 months, at least getting an idea of what those main pillars are going to be, that could impact conference affiliation because there could end up being new Division I membership standards that might require certain levels of commitment in order to be at Division I or to compete at a given level in Division I at a given sport. So that's interesting. This is certainly an unprecedented time of transition and change. And I think, I have a meeting, our spring meeting next week with our presidents, athletic directors, SWAs, and faculty athletic reps. And that's one of my messages is that change is coming. It's going to be significant. We've been together as a conference where, through some of this membership changes, and we just need to continue to talk together, work together as some of these adjustments are coming. So, yeah, I don't, obviously some of those changes were, related to strength, maybe some of it from television at the highest level. But I think being more geographically regional makes a lot of sense cost-wise. And even though that there was a period where a lot of leagues really expanded, and you saw that more kind of at the group of 5 level than you did at our FCS level. But yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do believe that a lot of conferences financially, they're looking to be wise in terms of geographic location.
So with that being said, to speak specifically on the SoCon and what you think at this point currently as you head into those meetings, how would you describe the strength of the SoCon 100 years plus in? What are you seeing from the SoCon as you step forward, and what are those pillars that you think really show the strength of where your conference specifically is heading?
Well, naturally, we have history. So we're, stability. I think those are things that really stand out. We have a lot of camaraderie within our league, even though that institutionally we have some diversity. You have 2 military publics. You have 4 total publics. We've got 4 privates. So you have some different types of configurations. We're in a very similar area of the country, so that's helpful. But despite some of those institutional challenges, we get along great. We work together. So I think that's special. I think our conference has a real focus on academics. We have some academic programming that is unique. We have an undergraduate research forum that's hosted at Wofford every year, where 10 students from each school come and present research projects. This past February, we had an entrepreneurship challenge, kind of like a Shark Tank, where profit and nonprofit teams of students, this is non-athletes, met. We honor our faculty, staff, and we're looking at a leadership conference for deans and department heads coming up here. So those are things that I think academics are very important to our league. Men's basketball has been a strength. We were ranked 12th in the country out of 32 Division I conferences. A year ago, we were 9th. So we have a league that's highly competitive across the board. So that's certainly a point of pride. We're very good in FCS football too. So that's an area that, we look to get multiple teams back in the playoffs coming up here. So, yeah, I think there's a number of things that we look at as strengths.
And as you step forward and look at the evolution of the SoCon, I mean, you and I have talked about the history of the SoCon in the past, and now the evolution as this conference takes a step forward. What would you point to when we talk about evolution, progression, and what is coming? What do you see in the SoCon? What have we seen over the last few years that you feel can really play to the evolution and the rise of what the message is of the SoCon and the strength of it, to kind of go off of that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think one of the things is to improve our branding. And I think we were able to do that through a new television contract with ESPN and CBS Sports Network. And we also have an agreement with Nexstar Broadcasting Stations and more of a regional network. So we were having, maybe 1.5 averaged nationally linear television games for men's basketball. And this last year we had 13. So a new agreement, building the brand, that's important. Our agreement has over 700 events that's on ESPN Plus. So I think that's one thing that we've grown on. I think increased stability in our league. We increased the exit fees, basically more than doubled those to send a message that we want to be together. And I think that's really important moving forward is, are you together? How would you define success? And so those things are important. As I mentioned, we continue to look at things academically. We want to be highly competitive in all of our sports. And those are things that we're looking at. What can we do in scheduling? What can we do in a variety of things to help better position our better teams and better sports for success in the postseason? So those are a few things that come to mind.
And when you look at these annual spring meetings and getting everybody together, you and I were talking off the air that, it's been a while since, during this pandemic, you can really bring everybody into a room together. What are you most looking forward to in just being able to have these meetings and sit down? What has gotten you excited? What are you thankful for of these last couple of years of what we've seen to just be in the meeting room with the figureheads of these schools that make up your conference? What are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, it's always good to get together, just kind of building that relationship face to face. Yes, we've had a lot of Zoom calls, and so being face to face, and you can get a little bit more intimate and more detailed on your discussions. So I look forward to having more vibrant dialogue. I'm looking forward to, maybe sharing with the membership what's going on with the transformation, all the different topics, whether it's, D1 membership or, what's going to happen with championships or, deregulation, what types of changes or, what's the Power Five looking at doing long term. And so talking about what I'm hearing that's out there, what my thoughts are, and then of course what their thoughts are, and having dialogue in anticipation, even though we don't know exactly what the game plan is going to be, getting feedback from our membership. And that's going to be important as we look ahead. How do we stay together? How do we stay strong? How do we communicate and anticipate some of these changes and make sure we've had a chance to vet a lot of those different perspectives out?
That coming here from Jim Schaus, the SoCon commissioner, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, to start off our Commissioner Central series, taking a look around the country at the goings-on of collegiate athletics and getting to know the conferences specifically, as well as taking a look at the bigger picture. Jim, you said you want to sit down and speak on what you think the quote-unquote Power Five, the autonomy group of the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, the ACC, and the Pac-12 could be doing. What do you anticipate? Because I've spoken with some within these conferences about the fact that, autonomy by definition means self-governing, that in the future there could be a breakaway. What are you hearing? What are you thinking of the future of collegiate athletics? Could we see a breaking away of this autonomy group, and then essentially, collegiate athletics from there having to figure out where the FBS remainders as well as the FCS are going to go from there that are within Division I? What do you think of the future of collegiate athletics from that standpoint?
Well, I would say, given what we've learned in the last year or two, nothing would surprise me. But I'm not expecting anytime in the near future the Power Five breaking away, if you will. Breaking away, in my mind, means that you're leaving the NCAA. You're creating your own structure. That seems a little. I don't sense that's where most people are at the Power Five level. Is that something that could happen much longer down the road as an evolution towards greater autonomy? Yes, I think that's possible. I think a lot of the discussions with transformation is going to be about more freedom for them. So ability to potentially to offer more scholarships or more staffing sizes with coaches, or so more access for them. So I think if discussions go where I think they will, I think they're going to continue, even though we know that schools in our conference is much different than in the SEC. We get that. That's always been the case. We don't want to hold them back. I mean, if there's things that they need to do and they want to hire 2 or 3 extra basketball coaches, go for it. If we end up having equivalency sports like baseball being able to offer more than 11.7 scholarships, and they can offer 15 or 18, and some of those schools want to spend the money to go do that, that's fine. Those things are going to happen. And so I think that there's a place for autonomy groups to get more freedom and more access as they need it. But we can still do that and stay under the big tent and still have what really binds us together, which is the men's basketball tournament, women's basketball tournaments. Those things really bind us together, and NCAA championships. And we compete against those schools. So I just like to believe that it's going to look different. I think there's going to be continued changes. But my hope is that we can all stay together. And I think there's value in that, even though we do compete at different levels.
That coming from Jim Schaus here, SoCon Commissioner, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. To go off of that, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing collegiate athletics from your point of view right now?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. One is leadership. I think that, you have Mark Emmert stepping down. So who's going to be the next NCAA president? What is the role of that position? What is the structure of the NCAA? Is there going to be some adjustments there? So that's very big. I think there'll be some adjustments in what is Division I. So what does it take to be in Division I? And so what are those standards? I think that's going to be a very big area. I think deregulation, simplification of the NCAA, probably having recruiting rules being more simplified. I think the NIL situation it's kind of a mess. I mean, it doesn't seem to have any easy solution anytime soon. You have states with different laws. Probably Congress getting involved and having, some structure where it can be consistent across the board is probably the main solution, which that might be a year or two away. I don't think that is a top priority for them right now. The NCAA came out recently and talked about it. I think they're going to really focus on some of the more egregious issues where we've had legislation that doesn't allow boosters to pay student athletes. And that direct relationship, is always been a concern. And so I think they're going to take a look at trying to look at those situations that are apart from legitimate NIL, where the athletes are really, legitimately making money on their name, image, and likeness. It's not that. It's at some of these collectives that are, getting involved and paying players for nothing. They're not actually doing commercials for them, et cetera. So that's going to be interesting. And the litigation issues are significant right now. I mean, the NCAA's had lawsuits and lost the Alston case. What does the industry look like and be successful in the future, dealing with some of those issues? Do some more responsibilities move down to the conferences from the NCAA? I mean, so there's just there's a whole lot, I think, that's out there to discuss that's been unique. I think the transfer portal is kind of done. I mean, I don't think that's going to change any. People are adapting to that. There'll be continued discussions about athletes getting paid or getting more. I think that's always going to be the case. I don't think the NCAA, I don't think its members want pure pay for play. I don't think that's something that's desired, to have athletes be employees. I don't think there's a whole set of other issues related to that. But there's just a few for you, Dan.
And you mentioned two of the big ones, right? NIL and the transfer portal, and that seems to, I mean, people call it the Wild Wild West. Some people say the Wild Wild West had more rules, and I saw this from a million miles away that this was going to become a very intense, deep problem, because there is, I mean, you talked about it, states have different rules and regulations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when they were trying to put NIL out there after California's ruling, there were 9 states at one point that had some plan in place, and the other 41 states were still either reviewing or didn't want to do it. And the NCAA said, well, everybody for this year is going to do it. And I think when that confused me, can the NCAA overrule the states within the union, and does that get Congress involved? You spoke about Congress and whatnot. So there's a lot of gray area to this, and the leadership is changing. And when Mark Emmert said, within these past couple of years, I am not the czar of football, I have no control over college football, I mean, that left a lot of people thinking, okay, well, then what is the job of the president of the NCAA? So as the NCAA is going through this transformation process and this new constitution and whatnot, what are you hoping for in leadership? And do you hope that somebody does take the reins of college football as the NCAA president? And do you feel that football should function separately outside of the NCAA world? I mean, I think that what's gone on the last couple of years have created a lot more questions than answers. So what do you want the next president to really embody, and does there need to be more control over college football?
I think the next president or executive director or whatever that role needs to be will have to be a consensus builder. We have to build trust within the membership. The NCAA has multiple boards. There's a board of governors, board of directors. There's a presidential forum. There's a Division I council. So I think the governance structure probably needs to be simplified a little bit and to determine what the role is of that executive director or president. What is their role? What are they trying to do? Football. I know there is some interest in discussions about whether FBS would have separate guidelines and legislation separately, might have more autonomy even from the NCAA's involvement. And I don't know if that's necessarily all that bad if that occurs. I know I'm at an FCS conference you're either in Division One, you're either FBS, you're FCS, or you're not playing football. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of differences between them. I think if it only was limited to football, wasn't all sports, I think that's something that there's some talk about that. I think that's certainly possible. We would just want to have the ability to continue to play FBS programs in games and receive guarantees, and we do receive some financial support from the CFP, the College Football Playoff. So I could see changes like that. I think there's going to be, I think you're going to see some things, whether it includes football being separate or not, I don't know, but it's certainly one of the topics of discussion.
And as we look at it, I mean, like you said, you're in an FCS, a Division I AA conference in the SoCon, and when we take a look at this, that all the conversation of the College Football Playoff and the expansion of the College Football Playoff and the need to have more fairness here. Well, at the FCS level, you already have a playoff that is expansive, that does allow for more than 4 teams to showcase themselves. So what do you think of the model of the FCS when it comes to football and really determining who the champion is? And do you think the College Football Playoff should look at the model of the FCS and see some of the value in it? What can you say about what the FCS provides, and if the College Football Playoff expansion, if it would behoove the committee to at least entertain what the FCS has been able to do, because it seems to have been successful?
Yeah, I think the FCS model is very successful. It's very exciting, the playoff situation, how it kind of boils down. I would like to see more national television during the regular season for FCS football, but there's just not a lot of space when you're talking about what's available on a Saturday. It's a great brand and quality football that I hope we can find ways to get more exposure in the playoffs. There is some national linear television, so I think we have a very good model, and it's to me it's in a very exciting situation. I think that FBS will expand. I think the College Football Playoff will expand. I think it's going to take a little time, people working through it, but I think it will get bigger to a larger number. Will those additional spaces, will it allow every group of 5 school a slot, or maybe just a chance at a slot? How many at-larges are there? How many are guaranteed slots? Those are things that are probably part of the debate. But I think if we're sitting here 2 years from now, I think it'll probably, something will happen by then that will show that it will expand. There's just more interest. Obviously, the number of FBS programs that compete. I spent 11 years as the AD at Ohio, so those are things, schools like that, would love to have more access. And when you have 130 schools, and you'll have 4 in a championship, so probably expanding that makes sense and would be more consistent with other sport entities in terms of that ratio.
That coming from Jim Schaus, the SoCon commissioner, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Jim, you spoke a little bit about the transfer portal and what happens there. Within your conference and coming up after you, I'll be joined live by Kyle Kallander, the Big South commissioner, and the Big South and the SoCon are the 2 conferences that still currently have the intra-conference rule where if you go from one school to another within the conference of the SoCon or the Big South, you do have to still sit out a year. We saw that rule dissolve with other conferences in Division I. What are your thoughts on this moving forward? Is this a rule that you may do away with? And how do you see maybe the advantages and disadvantages of the intra-conference rule?
I think originally the rule existed in conferences because you didn't want to have collegiality issues with when coaches are going back and forth and potentially tampering and getting upset, and the ADs are getting involved. And, the schools are supposed to be partners, and so I think that was a very good rule. I think it helps that. Keeping in mind that an interconference transfer situation is rare, doesn't really happen all that often, and I think that our membership has not reviewed it in a while. It's been probably close to a year, and been a lot of changes since then. Is it possible that we might make a change to that? It is. It's really up to the schools. The schools vote. Conference offices don't make decisions like that. It's really done by the membership in voting. It'll be a topic of discussion that we'll have with administrators next week to see if that's something that they want to do. I think our conference isn't afraid to be unique. If there's things that we feel strongly about, we have a league that really, really focuses on unity. And so I could see some examples in the future where our conference will make decisions about certain options that are out there that, hey, if you could add a couple more coaches, our league may say, we don't want to do that. Let's not all do that. And so I think you'll see more differentiation among conferences in the future once more of the details of the transformation become available. Instead of all the way across the board, you'll see everybody doing the same thing. I think there'll be more autonomy that conferences will have, and conferences will group around what's important to them, what their values are. And those are, that's just one of maybe other topics in the future that is really up to the membership, and I'm certainly going to support what our members want to do.
And like you said, with this transformation and seeing what exactly the parameters are going to be of the NCAA moving forward and those within it, the dare to be different, right? In today's world, do you feel as a leader of a conference, as someone who has so much responsibility, do you feel that there is almost this force into a model now that if somebody does it, right, everybody has to do it, right? When California passed the legislation and said, well, within our state, we're going to allow name, image, and likeness, that forced the hand of the NCAA. Do you feel as a commissioner in today's collegiate athletic world that there is more of a move away from make your own decision and more of a, hey, you need to follow the leader, you need to get in line with everybody? I mean, how do you assess the way that things are kind of handled now? Because social media has obviously involved itself a lot in everything. I think everybody's sitting at everybody's dinner table now. At least that's what it looks like. So how do you handle that? How do you handle, hey, we want to have our own identity, and, these 5 conferences went in that direction and we think you should go there too. How do you handle that world, and do you think it is like that now where there's almost a forcing of the hand instead of saying, hey, you're your own conference, you're your own entity, do what you feel is right?
I think it depends on the situation. I think, when there is situations in order to stay competitive, that I think, athletic directors, for example, are going to be paying attention what peer conferences are doing or what schools they compete against in their region. And, it starts when, somebody improves facilities or, makes a greater investment in a coaching salary. That dynamic exists, and you certainly want to be competitive. So I think there's a relationship between investment and expected return. So yeah. You have to keep in mind, whether it's within your conference or even regionally or nationally, that you are going to be paying attention to what other people are doing. You are going to have to identify what it takes to be competitive. So there's that. I think there's other possibilities that aren't necessarily about financial investment that could relate to how a conference, wants to operate. If you look at the Ivy League, for example, they've made decisions about how they're going to operate with scholarships and how they're going to approach things. I think you'll just see more of that. That may not necessarily be about competitive investment, but there could be other things, just general nuances, and some of it is financial. Conferences at our level, they're not. We don't compete with Georgia and Alabama now. And if they've got more ability to spend more money and they have the capacity to do that, you're not going to see schools in our league just jump up and go, well, we got to stay up with Georgia. So I think it's more difficult probably for the group of 5 conferences, that aren't really in a position to stay up with them. But so I think that if some of those schools at the highest level want to grow and do more, I think a lot of people at our levels like, go for it. That's fine. That's not going to be fine for us. We won't be able to do that. Our schools can't afford to do that or are not interested in doing that. So I think it depends, Dan, on the situation at hand, because you always want to compete with your peers. So you have to look at staying up with the Joneses in some cases for sure. But there may be some other more governance structure orientation that in the future you might see more differentiation than you have in the past.
And as we've seen, there's been so many different things that are affecting the world of collegiate athletics now, and of the model and of where to head from here, and decisions being made, and what can that do to affect you. As you look at the SoCon conference now, when you look at what the SoCon has become, do you look at expansion? Do you look at, what some conferences are doing because teams are consistently moving around? Do you look at Division II and maybe bringing one of those institutions that could be primed to do that, bringing them up? How do you view realignment from the SoCon's point of view as you look at 2022 and beyond?
Well, we dealt with that last year. There was a number of our schools that were approached by different conferences for affiliation, and I think that we exhibited solidarity. That we are committed to the conference. We our schools want to be in our league. They see the value of what we're about, and it fits in a lot of different areas. So, yeah, we dealt with that. We talked about expansion, and I think that our focus is quality over quantity. We could add more schools. We could be at 16 tomorrow if that's what we wanted to do. But we'd rather have 10 committed quality institutions. And does that mean that we would never consider expanding a school or two in the future? No, it doesn't. If it was right, if it made sense, if the membership felt committed to it, and it fit, it's got to fit a geographic footprint. It's got to fit an academic commitment level. You would want additions to make you better in areas that you want to be better at. So I think probably a lot of the major shifts and changes at our level probably took place last year. Does it mean that there might be a few other shifts? There could be. The most important thing is you just have to be the best you can be. You have to be progressive and look at how you can build and grow so you have members that want to be a part of that vision.
And of the members that you have, when you look at them, and like you said, quality over quantity, you could be 16 tomorrow, but you have 10 today and you feel good about what you have. When you look at these schools across the board, what are the things that you think adequately can describe what we're looking at here? I mean, we look at Virginia Military Institute, we look at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, we look at East Tennessee State, Wofford, Furman, Citadel, Western Carolina, UNC Greensboro, Mercer, Samford. How would you describe the makeup of this conference currently?
I think, as I mentioned, there is some unique diversity in the institutions. So I don't know if there's a conference in the country that has regular publics, military publics, and private schools in one league. And so on the face of it, there's some neat things about that diversity. And then on the other side of the coin, there's some challenges because the schools are unique. If you've ever been to VMI, it's a very different place. It's not like a more of an intercity school like UNCG or Chattanooga. So the schools are very different, but I would say what binds us together is a commitment to academics. I think our geography is important. We're a bus league. Nobody flies to anything within our league. I think there's great history. I think we have several of our key sports that we've been competitive in. So it is interesting. When I was in the Missouri Valley Conference at Wichita State, we were very split, public and private. So I don't think that necessarily, the institutions don't have to always be the same, that there could be some differences, and yet you can find some commonality on the things that make sense.
And knowing that your home is there in Spartanburg, South Carolina, how would you describe that? Like you said, all the schools can can bust. They don't have to fly to each other. So that's obviously something that not a lot of conferences can say. And, you know, there are some conferences that kind of head scratcher a little bit when you look at a team that looks completely displaced when most of the teams are in the West and here's a team in the Midwest. So being in Spartanburg, South Carolina for your headquarters and having these institutions surround you, what can you say about Spartanburg and about calling South Carolina home for the SoCon?
We've been here since 2005, so we've been here for a while. We're very centrally located. You know, no trip. I was just in Birmingham this week, and that's a pretty far trip from Spartanburg, but it's still, 4.5 hours, and I get to VMI, the other extreme, in about the same. So it's helpful for travel. We have neutral championships like our men's and women's basketball tournament is in Asheville, North Carolina, also very centrally located. It's an hour from here. Our baseball tournament is going on right now in Greenville, South Carolina, which is 35 minutes from here, also very centrally located. So I think that helps, that you've got championships that are convenient. The travel is convenient. The culture here in the Southeast, we have, we all live in an environment that's very similar. I think there's a lot that we can hang our hat on. That being here in Spartanburg, being here in South Carolina, we have, 2 schools, Furman and Wofford, that are very close. Citadel is down in Charleston, not very far. So, it really has made a lot of sense. And I think the history of our league and that stability also has helped as well.
That coming from Jim Schaus here, SoCon commissioner. And Jim, final note here, favorite part of your job? Times are challenging the last couple of years with NIL, transfer portal, pandemic. Just a few more things to add onto the plate of a typical day of a commissioner. So what is your favorite part of what you do?
It's the people. I think that, dealing with our different campuses, our presidents, our ADs, or, the different administrators, coaches, get to see student athletes. It's all about those relationships that we have with people. And that is refreshing to me at our championship to watch those baseball teams compete for a chance to win a conference title, to get to the NCAAs, the fans. It's all about people. And I think we've got great people in our administration that I love to work with. And although there are some things logistically and some of the changes that are going on in our industry that I can't say that I necessarily love all of those things, I get refreshed when I get back with our people.
That coming from Jim Schaus, SoCon commissioner, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Cafe Kubal studios. Jim, I appreciate your time. I'm happy that we got to kick off Commissioner Central this series with you, and I thank you for going into a lot of these different pieces of the world of collegiate athletics and diving into, obviously, the reality that it is a very interesting time, a unique time for conferences, for schools, for student athletes, for coaches, and, of course, for the NCAA as a whole. So I thank you for your expertise and your time spent within the profession, and I thank you for taking some time with us today.
My pleasure, Dan. Good luck to you.
All right, take care. That coming from Jim Schaus once again here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. We will be back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in just a moment when we switch over to the Big South and to Commissioner Kyle Kallander of the Big South Conference. That's coming up right after this fast break, where sports meets life inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also, I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, hanging out here with you. Cafe Kubal, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. You'll also be able to find Cafe Kubal by heading off to 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, as well as to the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse at their Sweetheart Corner location in their drive-thru location. Here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, we have a series that we get to begin today, and we're going to be going all around the country, and I'm very excited about this, with the opportunity to speak with the leaders of collegiate athletics all throughout our great nation. And we have started things off officially today, and we'll continue that conversation as we are here with the commissioner of the Big South, and that is Kyle Kallander, who is joining us here today on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios to speak on the strength of his specific conference of the Big South, as well as to take a look at the evolution of the Big South, name, image, and likeness in the big picture sense, as well as the transfer portal and where collegiate athletics are heading. So, this opportunity to join the Big South is here with us this morning, and I'm very elated to have Kyle back onto the show, so let's bring him in. Kyle, how are we doing today?
So far, so good, but the day is young, right? Hope you're doing well, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Doing very well. And you and I were talking off the air that you've gotten to travel around and enjoy some spring athletics in the world of the Big South. So where have your trips brought you? And just to speak to the positivity and the solid movement of the Big South here in the spring, would love to give some plugs to those teams out there that are keeping you traveling.
Well, spring is a lot of fun. We have 19 total sports, and a lot of those championships happen in the spring. So it does seem like our championships universe is kind of centered on High Point, North Carolina, because that's where we had our outdoor track and field championships, which was an outstanding event, and North Carolina A&T setting all kinds of conference records and even national times in some of their events. So that was a lot of fun. High Point actually hosted women's lacrosse, but we also I get to get out on campus and see some of our presidents because it's also a big meeting time. Everybody's got their big conference meetings this time of year, right? So a lot of preparation around that and getting ready for really important discussions that we're going to have next week.
Yeah, and when you look at those discussions that you want to have for the Big South annual meetings, what do you want to address? What is on the docket that is of prime importance to you as you step forward in the Big South?
Well, number one, it's what's happening nationally with the NCAA, the restructuring, what the transformation committee conversation is. What does the future of college athletics look like within the NCAA, or is there actually a different model? So I was actually hoping we'd have more to chew on from the transformation committee at this point. So we're still kind of shooting in the dark a little bit, at least in terms of some of the important conversations and topics around student-athlete support and membership standards at the Division I level. But it will be very important that we have these discussions. We understand what's happening nationally as much as possible, understand where others are coming from, and what's important to the Big South. We'll have Kevin Lennon, Vice President of the NCAA, with us. That will help because he's staffing a lot of those really important meetings. And Julie Cromer, co-chair of the Transformation Committee, is going to join us as well. So we really will get an insight to what they're thinking currently. But there's still so much left in this process to really discuss. That really needs to be able to be crystallized before we know exactly where things are going. I mean, we may not know that until the fall.
Yeah, and in this transformation of it, like you said, you wish you had more information up to this point. What are you hoping for? What are you looking for? I know you said the future of the NCAA, or maybe a different model. I mean, what is the desire from your point of view that needs to happen for the NCAA to survive everything that's going on?
Well, that's a really good question because it kind of comes in two buckets. What's ideally we'd like to have happen, and what is more realistic? Because we're in the unfortunate position that the courts have forced us into considering models that, in my opinion, are not healthy for the collegiate model, are not healthy for college athletics as we understand them, and are forcing us toward a professional model. Now, I'm not saying we have to go back to the old ways. I'm certainly not suggesting that, but at the same time, we're restricted in terms of some of the parameters we can put around what we can do here, because we're concerned about lawsuits. We're concerned about the skyrocketing legal fees, which really kind of put us in this position originally with NIL, and so we're forced to think differently, which isn't a bad thing, but think in ways that just a year ago we wouldn't have thought we'd be thinking about. Because in my mind, college athletics is different than professional athletics. We are talking about students. That's really important. We're shaping young people's lives in terms of their experiences and their maturity, and preparing them for life after college. And so, if we're going to be just treating them like employees, I think we lose a lot of that. And I don't think that's a benefit overall for student athletes. I absolutely think that they should have opportunities, through name, image, and likeness. I think we've gone too far with it, frankly. But I've been on board with NIL and monetizing that for most of my career, quite frankly. I just think once we cross the line to sponsorships and endorsements, then we start to lose control, and that's what we're seeing now. So I have a lot of concerns about that. Ideally, I'd like to see us protect the collegiate model in some way. I think it's really important that we don't cross the line into professional athletics as much as possible. We don't cross the line into pay-for-play. But I'm getting more and more pessimistic about our ability to do that. And ultimately, there's got to be some congressional involvement if we're going to protect the collegiate model. That's honestly how I feel. So it's a really challenging day. Everybody's obviously talking about it, focused on it. We talk about our meetings next week. We're beginning to have conversation. I'm beginning to have conversation with some of our leaders around the Big South about, we're just going to have to decide what we want to be, who we want to be, and what level we want to be, because we're not sure we're going to be able to cap anything because of the litigious environment we have. So if you don't have caps on scholarships, you don't have caps on personnel, you don't have caps on recruiting, then at least at the national level, and conferences are forced to make decisions on what they want to do, then we just have to understand who we are, what we are, and what we're comfortable with, even though similar conference down the road might be doing more. We just have to understand where our place is in that regard and be comfortable with it.
Yeah, and you talked about a very difficult thing, and we're able to eloquently put that. I mean, this world that we live in for collegiate athletics now, I mean, it has turned into, I mean, the one thing that makes me sad above everything is that everything we're talking about with NIL and transfer portal and transformation and what's the NCAA going to look like and the conferences and realignment and reclassification for certain schools and what, not once am I hearing anybody talk about education. Not once. And nothing about the student side of it. Nothing about the fact that it is so hard to become a college athlete, number one, and once you are a student athlete in college, that small percentage gets even tinier of being able to play professionally, and then even if you get to play professionally at 30, 31, 34 years old, you have the rest of your life and you're no longer playing. So we put all this emphasis on athletics and we lose the student side of it, but if you don't have an education, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And I feel that, that's one of the, in the battlefield that has become collegiate athletics today, that's one of the, bleeding bodies on the ground, I think, now is the student side of student athlete. And I want people to talk about it. I want people to fight for it. And listen, I mean, the NCAA is a $1 billion industry that says that they're a non-for-profit. I mean, we can see the loopholes in this, but at the same time, where I think student athletes are obviously why the NCAA exists and can make money is because of them, so they deserve something. I'm very discouraged by the fact that academia has taken not a backseat; they're not even in the car anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've really gotten tired of people just discounting the benefits student athletes get, even outside of NIL now, just talking to any other kind of, it is an age-old argument. I recognize you get the value of the scholarship, you get the value of the development, the value of the support, but you can't discount that. And you can't discount the impact that has on young people's lives. I mean, it is so important, and I just really worry that, again, we're doing a disservice to our student athletes, and we're trying to compare them with employees. We're trying to compare them with coaches, for crying out loud. And I just don't see that comparison being accurate or adequate. Coaches are employees. They do have a contract with the institution. If they're not performing, they're fired. And hopefully, and I know there's an argument to be made, hopefully our commitment to student athletes is a little different than that we're wanting to really develop these student athletes and we want them to graduate. So it's it's a real challenge with where we are right now, and I am hopeful that people are beginning to see that maybe this path we're going down isn't the best way to go. But again, I'm not sure how we put any genies back in the bottle, nor am I suggesting we have to completely, in that, frankly, Congress is going to have to step in if we're going to protect the collegiate model.
Well, and here's my question. Coaches have been able to move wherever they want to move, right? They say to a student athlete, we're gonna be with you forever. We're gonna develop you. We love you. We appreciate you. They go into the family's household and they feed the family a bunch of this stuff. And some coaches are being honest and some coaches aren't. And they say, hey, we're going to be here to develop your kids. We're going to be here to love up your kids. We're going to take care of them. And then 3 months later, they take a contract somewhere else. They get, the school pays the buyout and they move on and move forward. So the argument has been, well, a college coach can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and they don't have to keep their word. So that's where the transfer portal is control to the student athlete. But off of your point, if a coach is an employee and student athletes want to be treated as employees, then can you fire them and take their scholarship and tell them to go somewhere else, is I guess the question.
Well, certainly if they're employees, you can. Now, there are protections around that to protect student athletes in that regard. Now, hey, I'm not Pollyanna here. I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't coaches that don't do it the right way out there. But, if you get to an employee-employer relationship, that's a completely different situation in terms of student athlete. Yeah, you're going to have your contract, and if you're not performing, you're gone. There's going to be a lot less consideration for anything else, including your academic performance. So, I think we have to really be aware and concerned about that. The other thing, you're talking about the transfers and the movement. Again, where does academics play a role here? It's been shown that graduation rates for transfer student athletes are lower than a student athlete that stays at their original institution. So again, the academics comes in second in this argument, and we may be seeing a lot more student athletes that have not achieved degrees because they move from place to place. You don't have the transferable credits. It just doesn't quite work as well. What impact does that have now on the APR? What happens with APR? Again, if we're going away from the academic model, then maybe it doesn't matter. But in my mind, it should. So all those things are really a concern. And the other thing about, again, and maybe I'm just too old school, but institutions, especially at the Big South level, our coaches are working hard to identify, recruit, bring student athletes in that they think could be successful in their program, successful in college, develop those student athletes. And hey, if a student athlete succeeds and has another opportunity to, get better, I completely understand that. More power to them. But at the same time, I don't think we can just say, oh, well, it's okay, that we've put all these resources into these student athletes, and then they're just free to go at any time and be immediately eligible somewhere. I just don't think that's a model that is successful or is appropriate for what I call the collegiate model. So, we've always been in the Big South opposed to opening up the transfer spigot, to opening it up to free agency, which is basically what we have right now. And we've always favored some restrictions around that. Again, I think genie's out of the bottle. I tend to support Gary Barta's comments a week or two ago about maybe everybody needs to sit. But again, I don't know that we can ever go back to that scenario. So I just think it's really hard. And who's really suffering here because of this is the high school student athlete. They have fewer opportunities because everybody's now trying to get better through the transfer portal. So what does that do to these kids coming out of high school where they don't have these same opportunities they did before?
Yeah, and you brought it up, that you've, in the Big South, wanted some type of restriction, right? Some type of rules and regulations to transferring and whatnot. I just had, as we start off the Commissioner Central series, as we take a look around the country at collegiate athletics and get the perspectives of commissioners and executive directors, we started that off with the SoCon commissioner, Jim Schaus, who was just on before you. And ironically, the SoCon and the Big South are the only two conferences that still have the intra-conference rule in transferring, where you will have a player sit out a year. if they're going to travel within the conference from one school to another school that is within the Big South. So, obviously they have that model, and they could potentially look at that at their spring meetings and whatnot. What are your thoughts on that model and keeping that model? And second to that, do you feel in today's world that you're being forced to get rid of that model?
Yes, to answer the last question, that's kind of the trend things are going, and so I think there is external pressure because of the movement at Division I to get rid of that. And as you mentioned, it's us and the Southern are the only two that still have that in place. And for us, it's more about relationships and collegiality within the Big South, and we saw it a little bit, quite frankly, this spring, because we did have a student athlete who wanted a waiver of our policy, and we began to see tension and deterioration of relationships between two of our members because of a student athlete was wanting to move from one to the next. Now, that student athlete ended up going someplace else out of the conference, so it ended up not being an issue. But that's exactly what we're talking about, and there becomes some distrust in what's going on and who's having the conversations and when. Certainly, there are examples where student athletes, or institutions wouldn't have a problem with a student athlete moving from one place to another. There are legitimate reasons for that, but there can also develop real concerns about what's happening within your conference. And we all know that there's, and I'm not accusing anybody at this point, but we know just generally there are conversations taking place that shouldn't be taking place out there in terms of kids before they get in the transfer portal. So we just had real concerns about what that does to the fabric of the conference and the membership. And so it is on our agenda to talk about next week when we get together. Our athletics director is going to discuss it again. Our CEOs are going to discuss it again. And so who knows? It could change. But at the same time, you kind of layer that over what's happening at the national level with the conversation about the NCAA structure and potential decentralization and deregulation of the NCAA rules, where now conferences are going to be making determinations on what should their transfer rules be, what should their financial aid caps be, what should their recruiting rules be. Excuse me. And so maybe us being in this position with the interconference transfer rule falls in line with really what we're all going to be talking about a year from now, which is, as a Big South, now that the NCAA no longer has financial aid rules, what does the Big South Conference want to do? And so maybe that falls under that, and it makes sense for us to make an independent decision, as we have, around these kinds of issues.
And speaking a lot of, getting into this, and like you said, what's going to happen, what is the NCAA going to look like, and if they're deregulating and they're sending everything to the conferences, then is there an NCAA, I guess, is the question. If there is no centralized, it seems like as time has gone on, the NCAA has taken less and less of the responsibility of governance. And when we saw NCAA President Mark Emmert, who's going to be stepping down sooner than later, he made the statement during COVID that, in the heat of the pandemic, he said, there is no czar of football. I have no control. I can't tell an institution whether or not they can play. I can't tell a conference whether or not they can play. And that left me feeling very concerned in the sense of the fact of, okay, well, if you as the NCAA president has no control over college football, then who does? And if you are going to suspend a coach and you're going to suspend a student athlete, but you can't tell a school or institution that they can't play, well, then with all due respect, if I'm a student athlete and you tell me I can't play, I'm still going to play, because you can't stop my school from playing, so then I play for my school. I mean, it's created a lot of confusion, but, Kyle, I said about 5 years ago, I said 5 to 10 years from now, so we've just hit that window. I said 5 to 10 years from now, the NCAA will either not exist the way that we have come to know it as, if it exists at all. And I'm sitting here today, 5 years later, in a transformation process where here we are. Is it going to exist? What's it going to look like? And where's the check and balance to the NCAA if the NCAA punishes a school for a rules violation but then doesn't punish another school? And I've seen that firsthand. So there's so many questions, and I think what comes down to it is, with NIL running rampant and the transfer portal creating free agency in collegiate athletics and having a potential deregulation process and a transformation process and the president stepping down, there's no true centralized form of leadership, and that makes me very concerned for you all as commissioners, that if there's no one to look to as the leader of collegiate athletics, then are you as a commissioner left to own your own island and do whatever you want, essentially?
That's the direction it's going, frankly. I will defend Mark Emmert a little bit here. I think his job's impossible. The NCAA has always been unmanageable as an organization. Even when Division I was 250 members. I mean, it's everybody. The NCAA is not Mark Emmert. The NCAA is not an office in Indianapolis. It's the membership. And when you're trying to make decisions with that large of a group of institutions, whether it's NCAA as a whole, all three divisions, or just Division I, or even within the subdivisions, it's a challenge. It's hard enough as a conference with 10 or 12 members, and you're trying to get everybody. You're trying to build consensus amongst just 10 or 12 members that have different missions and different outlooks and different resources. So it is really tough. You're trying to manage your board that's representing all these institutions to get to one place. And it's a very diverse division with the institutions we have here. So I think he takes a lot of arrows, but he does the best he can. I've not always agreed with him, so I'm not saying that. I think that we've always done the right thing. But at the same time, I think, and it comes with the territory, I think he's gotten a lot more blame than he deserves. So what is a model that will work moving forward? That's an excellent question. Unless something kind of dramatically changes where we're now willing to put all the authority in one person's hand or a smaller group's hands, then we're still going to have to deal with those issues. I am discouraged with what I'm hearing out of some of the Power 5 guys about, doing things themselves. Gene Smith's talked about it. I think he's talked more about the football, but if football is a separate entity, I don't think there's anything to stop them from basically, putting all their sports in a different association or organization. And that would really be unfortunate. Maybe that's where we're going. I would hate to see it happen, but I think that would be unfortunate for the opportunities for a lot of student athletes that currently are participating in Division I. And even though the Big South isn't going to win a lot of national championships, our student athletes want the opportunity to go compete against, Power 5 schools and get the NCAA championships and compete against the best of the best. And so that would really be an unfortunate day if that's the direction we ended up going. But yeah, to your last point, we're kind of looking to conferences to kind of make the decisions on what they're doing on their own. And again, I think a lot of this, while there's a lot of concern about the management of the organization, the efficiency of the organization, again, a lot of this is driven by the litigious culture that we have currently and what decisions we can or can't make as an association. So it's kind of forced us into looking at, okay, I guess we got to look at smaller groups and smaller markets as we make these decisions moving forward. So that really creates a difficult situation for us.
Yeah, it just seems like factions are breaking off into factions and more factions. And I had this conversation within the autonomy group. I had a conversation and it was about, and this was years ago, this was maybe 5-6 years ago. I said, now that you have this autonomy, which by definition means self-governing, have the commissioners, have you all sat down and thought about maybe just breaking away completely? And they said, well, Dan, I don't think it's going to happen right now, but it's not something that's out of the realm of possibility. And then we had the conversation again, and the conversation remained the same. Hey, it's not like we don't know about this. It's not like we can't talk about this. It's not happening right now. But, I look at the SEC has 16 schools. I look at the fact that when the SEC added Oklahoma and Texas, what was the response? The Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC formed a joint alliance. What's that alliance for? They say it's for education. It's not for education. They say it's for, just spreading information. It's not for spreading information. It's for preparation, in my opinion. And then here's the Big 12 was left out of both of these because the Big 12, were they going to survive? Were they not going to survive? They had 8, and now they're back to 12. They will be back to 12 by 2023 or 2024. So I also heard from Division II institutions and Division I outside of the autonomy group that, hey, when Oklahoma and Texas left, it shifted. It hit everybody. And we've had that conversation of those hits. And I've talked to Division II schools that are potentially looking at reclassification. I've spoken, with the American Athletic Conference and Mike Oresco, and the fact that his conference has been poached a million times, and here he is once again having to make a move. But now they've made a move where they're going to have the most football schools they've ever had, which is 14, which is only 2 less than the SEC and matches the ACC. And matches the Big Ten. So I mean, there's so much going on, Kyle, that I'm very concerned about the conversations I had 6 years ago and what it looks like today. What's stopping the SEC from just being its own league if it can get almost 20 schools there? And what's stopping the joint alliance of the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC from being their own? And then from there, do the rest of the conferences go to the FCS, and do they talk to you all and say, hey, let's take the FCS and bond it with the rest of the conferences in the FBS and let's form one major thing, because we're already not involved in the college football playoff, so we might as well try to get inside of the championship series that is within the FCS, but tweak the model a little bit. I mean, where do we go from here if the SEC is what they are, the joint alliance is what it is, autonomy is what it is by definition? Are we not looking at the rest of the FBS just joining with the FCS and saying, hey, let's keep Division I alive and let's do it together?
I don't think so. I don't think a majority in the Power Five have been, or really even currently desire to leave the NCAA or start their own. I think there has been more consideration of that recently because of what we've been forced to be thinking about here. I don't think it's because Division I has grown so large, although we got a few that are carping about that. I don't think it's because Power Five doesn't have the ability to craft their own future. I think they certainly can, because they have autonomy in a lot of areas, and through this process currently, they're going to get a lot more autonomy. So I think it, unfortunately, you got to follow the money, right? So I think they're going to try to do what is best for the financial sustainability of their programs. So how big does a conference get? It's until they have diminishing returns. At what point do you carve the pie up too much and doesn't make sense to add any more members? So I think that's going to be the determining factor. Same with the FBS situation. You're going to have conferences that certainly are going to want to stay with the Power Five and the CFP group because there's a revenue source there that's really important to them. So you're not going to see the Group of Five conferences decide they might as well go FCS. That is not going to happen unless there's in a situation where it's untenable, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So what's left, and again, I kind of go back to one of my original comments, is that we're going to have to decide where we are, what's best for us, who we want to be. It's really important that we provide the best opportunities for our student athletes. We've always kept that front and center, and we need to continue to keep that front and center. And how can we best do that without really forcing us into a position that really isn't going to make a lot of sense for us? So there's so much of an arms race. There's so much chasing the brass ring, which is good, and we understand that we're competitive. We're in college athletics, for crying out loud. But maybe this is a watershed moment for all of us to step back and say, what's really important for us moving forward, and what values do we really want to hold up and follow here as we make these decisions.
That coming from the Big South Commissioner, Kyle Kallander, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in our Commissioner Central series inside the Cafe Kubal studios. Well, Kyle, with all the stuff that we've talked about this morning, I want to talk about a lighter thing, NIL. And so as we look at name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal, this has made things more eventful it has essentially allowed the opportunity. Now, we talked about how you and the SoCon still have the intra-conference rule, where if you go to a different school inside the conference, you do have to sit out a season. But if you transfer anywhere else, the NCAA has said you do not have to sit out a year for that first jump. And so there's the opportunity of free agency. What concerns me about that is in the Big South, in FCS, these could be, a lot of student athletes that schools in the FBS maybe looked at, maybe didn't look at, maybe looked at but thought weren't a good fit, thought they weren't ready, and then essentially they come to one of your institutions, right? And here they are in the Big South, and they're playing for Monmouth or Kennesaw State or North Carolina A&T, and they get really good and they build themselves up, and then Duke comes over, Alabama comes over, or UCLA comes over and says, hey, thank you for what you've done with them in the Big South. Thank you for, essentially being our farm system. We're going to take them now. And then name, image, and likeness, right? The rich get richer because the schools that already have a ton of money and a lot of boosters and people that are willing to give can turn around and take what already is unfair and make it even more unfair. So name, image, and likeness is out there existing with little to no rules, and the transfer portal is out there existing where you have to essentially, as a coach, recruit a new class every year and re-recruit your entire roster as well.
Yeah, and even before the transfer portal, there were a number of transfers that were taking place, and when at that point, if you were in certain sports, you had to sit out a year, and so we understand that. I mean, we had a couple of former Big South student athletes that played on the national championship Baylor men's basketball team a couple of years ago. And so, those kind of opportunities you love for those kids. I mean, you understand it, you support it. But where we are now is that you have the student athletes that maybe aren't on your all-conference team that are deciding they want to jump in the portal just because they didn't get enough playing time or they, whatever reason. And so now you've got, out of a roster of 13 to 15, you've got 7 or 8 or maybe even more that are looking to transfer, and it's not. And some of them think they're going to get recruited by the bigger programs, but they end up not getting recruited. And so, unfortunately, you see these student athletes that are kind of in that middle tier that end up with either no opportunity, they were given up a scholarship and they end up with nothing, or it's a lateral or it's a move down. And that's probably not what they were intending, a majority of them, when they went that direction. So again, that's not benefiting those student athletes necessarily. And we're also teaching that, hey, you don't like it, just move on. You don't deal with the problem. You don't deal with the circumstance and try to get better. You leave and go someplace else. And I don't think that's healthy either. So that's the environment that we've created that I have real concern about from the transfer standpoint. NIL, there's part of me that's I'm glad I'm not at a Power 5 conference because, it's not the same issue for us as it is for them. Clearly, there's a lot of benefits to student athletes, and certainly, again, supporting the student athlete, understand that. We certainly do have student athletes taking advantage of that, which I think it can be a really good thing. But when you start, again, crossing over into the endorsement, the sponsorship, the collective world, how are we controlling that? What is really taking place? Is it in line with what our values are and what our rules are? And in some circumstances, probably not. So there's some just real concern around that. And we made the conscious decision that we would go with chaos instead of guardrails. And now we have chaos. And is it going to end up benefiting us because people in the right places, i.e. Congress, see that something needs to be done, and we're going to try to get some controls around it, which I think has to happen? Or do we just continue to move forward, which is trending in a not very positive direction?
I love what you said, Kyle, when you said guardrails, right? Because without guardrails, you're driving on the other side of the road, driving off the road, hitting things. I mean, this has become such a confusing time, and I see the angles, right? I see that the NCAA, billion-dollar industry, non-for-profit, a lot of people ask questions about that. And so you say, okay, well, student athletes should get something because the majority of them are not going to go pro. So if you're making money off of their jersey sales, they should get a percentage of that. If you're selling out your stadiums, maybe you look at giving them a percentage of that. So I understand that side of it, but at the same time, I'm a businessman. I'm making partnerships all the time. I know how shady and how strange and how confused. I know that every business I work with was not the most upstanding business. And when I found that out, I got rid of that. When I found out a business was not doing what they promised they were going to be doing, because I don't want that attached to my name. You have to understand, as a business owner, there's a lot of things that you're going to learn over time. And a 17, 18-year-old kid, I mean, to take them out of high school and say, hey, do you know, me at 36 years old, as I'm still learning, will always be learning, I'm going to sit them down and say, yeah, it's great to make money, but did you know of these 72 things you have to put in a contract that I realized over the last 10 years? So there's all of these different elements and pieces to it. It's not as simple as saying, well, the NCAA makes a lot of money, the student athletes should make money. And it's not as simple as saying, well, college coaches can do whatever they want, so student athletes should do whatever they want. We're creating a world of individualism, and we're creating a world with no personal responsibility and lack of work ethic. We're creating lazy people, right? You might want to leave a school because your coach left, and I totally understand that, right? If I'm a quarterback and I come to a school in the Big South and my coach leaves, I may want to leave and go with that coach. I may want to leave because that coach, I came there for them, and I know they say, you commit to the school, but the reality of it all is you commit to the people. We're all about relationships. We're about connections. And so I commit to the people. If my coach leaves, I should be able to leave. But there's the other side of it. Because there's no parameters, if I come to you and I say to my school, I want to leave, and they say, why? Well, because I don't want to work hard. Because you brought in another quarterback, and I don't want to have to compete with anybody. And we've seen how that doesn't work. Tate Martell, at the autonomy group level, he bounced around everywhere, and it didn't work out for him. He ran away from competition, and he ended up not starting. So, I think the hard part for me is if we create a world of laziness and a lack of personal responsibility and individualism, I understand that we're trying to pay, or we're trying to get the players some compensation. They already have a free education. I would love to have had a free education. And so I understand the model of wanting to get them something, but they already have something, and I think people need to understand that. And then the other side of it, coaches can do whatever they want. Well, why can't student athletes have some control over their life? I understand that part too, and I understand the part of student athletes coming to me saying, coaches used to be able to hand you a list saying you can't go to these 27 schools, and 5 of those 27 schools were the only schools recruiting me, so where am I supposed to go? I understand all of that, but what I don't like is the laziness, the lack of personal responsibility, the disbanding of community, and the individualism that this is creating.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same concerns. So what about the kids that are left behind? So you've got a roster of 15 in basketball, and you've got 10 kids that decide they're going to leave. What about the 5 that are left behind? So you talk about student athlete opportunity and benefiting student athletes. There's student athletes on the other side of this too. And again, not everybody moves on to greener pastures. And on the NIL thing, it's you want people. You want people to go out, and if they have a chance to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness and earn fair market value, great. But is earning $10,000 for an appearance at a charity golf tournament fair market value? I think you gotta ask some questions about what's going on out there.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about $1 million contracts being signed by 17 and 18-year-olds. I mean, that's and some people could say, well, yeah, Dan, that's 2 out of every 1,000, but still, it throws you off, and it makes you ask a lot of questions about this and then I asked the questions, and I've asked this to student athletes that have told me they never thought of it. I said, what if you have 2 receivers on a team and they both get paid a bonus for every time they have 10 catches in a game, and they both have 9 catches, and it's the 4th quarter, and there's a minute left, and you're driving down the field, and they go to the quarterback in the huddle, and they say, give me the ball, and if you give me the ball, I'll give you a little cut. So you better throw it my way. No, you better throw it my way. And what do you do if you're a business and you say, okay, you know what? This point guard, I think he's fantastic. I think this point guard's great, and we're gonna sign a deal. We're gonna ink a deal with this guard, and then they end up getting in trouble and they get suspended 10 games. And now they have, and let's say they get suspended for something with sexual abuse. So now they have all these commercials pre-recorded for this car dealership with this person that's brought up on sexual abuse charges. can that business get out of that deal? And what if you promote the quarterback and you give the quarterback $50,000, and in every single game you have commercials during every commercial break, and that quarterback throws 10 interceptions in the first 3 games, and they sit, and then the other quarterback comes up, and now you got a quarterback selling your cars that's the bench warmer that may never play again in college football for that team. Those are the questions I bring up.
It depends. Are these businesses? If you sign an 18-year-old and they get in trouble, and there's some concerns around them representing your business. It depends. Why is the business in it? Is the business really in it to further their business goals and sell more product, or is the business in it because they want to provide resources and compensation to student athletes, so they'll come to my institution or stay at my institution? And so maybe they're not as concerned about the fact that they have those kinds of issues, and so that's why. So I have some real concerns about the latter. My support of name, image, and likeness is for student athletes to go out and honestly benefit from it. But if it's just boosters, trying to make sure that we're keeping Johnny or Janie at my school and or get them to come to my school, and that's not only contrary to the rules that are in place, but it's a real concern for the direction this is going.
Yeah, and it's again, more questions than answers. 2 years ago, copy and paste what I said. More questions than answers, and 2 years later, it's the same because of lack of leadership and lack of a centralized regulatory system that tells us exactly what can and cannot happen. We're here with the Big South Commissioner, Kyle Kallander, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Kyle, before I let you go, would love to take a look at your institutions, your membership. Now, your full-time members, Campbell, Charleston Southern, Gardner Webb, Hampton, High Point, Longwood, North Carolina A&T, Presbyterian, Radford, UNC Asheville, USC Upstate, and Winthrop. And then you also have your associate members, Bryant in football, Robert Morris in football, and then for women's lacrosse, Furman, Mercer, and Wofford. Just what you can say about the makeup of this conference and the balance of full-time members with associate members, and just what your take is on that. And if you like being a conference that has full-time members as well as members that are connected with you, even if it is just for one sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just a correction. There's 2 of those institutes, 2 of those full members that are moving to the Colonial. So Hampton and A&T will be making that change. So there just continues to be swirl out there from conference realignment standpoint, and that's just part of Division I these days. We understand that. But we're really excited about, our future and our path and our membership moving forward. We've got really a great core of institutions here, in the 3-state area located in the southeastern portion of the United States. Really makes sense for us. We don't have to get on a plane outside of some of the affiliate members. You're hopping on a bus, you're getting there in a couple of hours. Your fans can travel, get to the institutions, and so it's really a positive model that we've built here. And again, I think there's a lot of cohesion, a lot of similarities of our institutions in terms of what they're trying to do to support their student athletes. So that's why I really like this league, and like being a part of this league, because we've never pretended to be somebody else or really forced that. We have always understood who we were, and great leaders and great people. We have prioritized, basketball in our league for our full members. That's really important. So we have minimum standards moving forward. We understand that if you're going to, get recognition and change image and reputation, it's going to come through. If it's through sports, it's going to come through basketball. So we've really been focusing on that a lot. It's been a challenge that COVID period to try to continue that because of what's happened with enrollments and resources and state support. But we're getting back on track with that and excited about that. We have brought in some affiliate members, certainly in football, you mentioned, with Bryant coming in and Robert Morris being a part of what we're doing. But what we're going to be doing in football is joining with a partnership with the Ohio Valley Conference beginning in 2023. Just because as we've looked at the shifting sands of Division I and FCS membership, it made sense for us to partner with them to have a larger conference in football, and with like-minded institutions, really have a lot of respect and friendship with Beth DeBush, the commissioner of the Ohio Valley, and so we think we've got a great thing going. In fact, the other day, we had a joint call of the presidents of all the chancellors of all of our schools, which was a really a great thing to do, and really positive conversation about the future of football in our leagues. And in terms of other sports, we have affiliate members. Usually, if we're down on numbers, to be able to boost those numbers to protect our automatic bid to the NCAA playoffs. And by having Furman, Wofford, and Mercer and women's lacrosse, it's really helped us with outstanding institutions, certainly, but also great women's lacrosse programs. So, we try to be innovative and creative, and protect the opportunities of our student athletes and provide them the best chance they have to be successful. And we think we're doing that. But again, I'm really proud of our membership and what they do for our student athletes.
And you had mentioned the fact that obviously the full-time members that are with the Big South until July of 2022. So in a little over a month's time, as we'll see, the exiting of North Carolina, A&T, and Hampton. How do you address that as you move forward, and are you looking at expansion for full-time membership?
Yeah, great question. We were, neither of those programs was in our league that long. We had Campton 4 or 5 years, and A&T had just been here a year. But again, things continue to change and shift. But one of the, number one, when we expand, we want to make sure we're bringing in institutions that help us get better and really are similar and really make sense for an affiliation with our other members. And certainly those two institutions did. But we also felt like, bigger is probably better these days. I mean, hey, ideally, I just as soon have an 8-team league, but you just can't do that these days with all the shifting. So being at 12, as we have been this past year, has been great. We felt like, that, probably on the large side and protects us from any movement. So, being at 10 moving forward is not a bad thing. A lot of our members feel like, let's just stay at 10 and move forward. This is great. Less you're competing against for a conference championship, and it really makes sense with what we're doing and who we've got in the league. But at the same time, you got to continue to look at it. You got to continue to, especially with what's happening at the NCAA right now, you got to continue to think about, what does that future look like? So we are exploring expansion. We're taking a look and see what might make sense for us. But again, we're very deliberate about that, and we want to make sure that whatever we do is smart and makes sense for us. Will we have to kind of grow our footprint a little bit and we are thinking about that, just from the standpoint of, what do we need to be thinking about? So, a lot of different conversations and things to consider moving forward, but again, feel great about our membership and where we are currently.
Yeah, and I know that obviously another piece to this, the Big South Conference and the Ohio Valley Conference, the OVC, having a football agreement. Just what you can tell us about this connectivity with the Ohio Valley Conference and what that does for football.
Yeah, we're excited about partnering with the OVC. They're like-minded institutions in terms of what they're trying to accomplish through their football memberships, the competitiveness, the success, the resources putting into our programs. Geographically, it's a really good fit, which is important. And the people and the leadership are just outstanding. And so we think it really makes a whole lot of sense for us on the football side of things. With our combined membership right now in 2023, which is when it goes into effect, is 11 members, which is a good size. Could grow, could shrink depending on how things happen moving forward. But again, it's protects both of us from a football standpoint, and it doesn't prevent us from continuing to think about adding football members into each of our leagues and ultimately splitting back off to 2 football leagues. So that's not out of the question moving forward. But at this point, it really makes a lot of sense for us, and I think develops a conference that's going to be really successful, going to be very competitive, and going to, again, provide great opportunities for our student athletes. So, and we think that thinking collaboratively and working together like this is a model that a lot of other conferences are going to be thinking about moving forward. Just adding numbers doesn't always make sense. To grow to 16 or 20 schools or whatever it is, especially if you're not the SEC where you don't have the billions of dollars coming in. So collaborating and working with others within your geographic footprint and for similar goals, I think makes a lot of sense. And so I think we're being fairly innovative in how we're doing this, and I think you're going to see that model copied moving forward.
Yeah, and we have seen this in other places, and it definitely can make a lot of sense in order to create that positive future and connectivity and having strength with two conferences working together in those alliances that move forward, as we've spoken about before. So with that being said, Kyle, I mean, we have run the gamut of conversation here today. Maybe you and I should go to the NCAA and be a part of these meetings ourselves. So Kyle Kallander.
I hear they have an opening, Dan. Maybe you should apply.
You're not the first commissioner that has asked me that, so I am not beyond the realm of considering it. I'll tell you that much. So
there you go.
Kyle Kallander, Big South Commissioner. A final note here, Kyle. Of all the things that challenge you today, what is your favorite part of your job as the Big South Commissioner?
Well, it's kind of what we started out talking about. It's getting out on campus, seeing people. We've got great leaders, whether it's presidents or ADs, and getting to our championships. We're not on campus as often, obviously, as an AD or a coach. So when we get a chance to get out there and see our student athletes compete for a conference championship, it's really brings it home of what it's all about. So that's been really fun with baseball, track, golf, whatever the sport has been recently. I've been able to get out and see our student athletes compete because, again, that's what we're all about, and it's really important that we provide those opportunities for those student athletes. So that's my favorite part, and it's been a great time the last couple of months.
Well, I definitely appreciate, always the opportunity to get to talk to you has been fantastic. I hope that, and I would love to do it more often. I told you before when we first spoke last season, or last year, I should say, that Big South rebranding logo is one that I want to sport when I'm walking around. So we're going to have to do something with the Big South so I can give you all a shameless plug. But I definitely appreciate what you're doing, Kyle. I love our conversations. I love how open you are about all of this and how free you are with the information of who you are and how you lead and why you do what you do. So thank you for what you're doing out there and for giving us such an inside look at the Big South. To leave no stone unturned really does mean a lot to me, and I always look forward to having you back on the show.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you.
All right, I'll talk with you soon. Take care.
Take care.
Coming from Kyle Kallander once again here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. And with that being said, we're going to take our final step aside on today's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. Man, you want to talk about college athletics and everything going on in today's world of collegiate athletics? Well, we just started out our Commissioner Central series, and it has already blossomed into something incredibly amazing. Just by having Jim Schaus from SoCon on today and from having Kyle Kallander on from the Big South, we have already addressed so many issues. And again, he's not the only commissioner that told me that there's an opening to be the president of the NCAA. Maybe I should put my name in the hat. So thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much, and thank you for your time. So, and thank you to the Big South. With that being said, we're going to take a step aside for a final fast break of today's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. When we come back around, we'll get you ready for Friday, and we'll wrap up today's show inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. We always appreciate you being here.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. I want to thank you for being a part of today's show and being here with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Big thanks to each and every single one of you on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com. Worldwide, all /Wake Up Call DT. YouTube.com /Wake Up Call DT, Facebook.com /Wake Up Call DT, and MixLR.com /Wake Up Call DT. You can also find us on Facebook.com /Live Now DT and on WakeUpCallDT.com. 5 places to listen and watch live, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And once we go live, we jump into the archives on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, MixLR, as well as Amazon Music and Audible. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Proud thanks to all of our Central and Upstate New York partners: Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Honda City of Liverpool, Millhouse Market, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Pizza Man, and Mother's Cupboard. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the proud multimedia marketing partner of your It is Fins Up all day, every day with the Lemoyne College Dolphins, and you can check them out every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, as that is Dolphin Time. Hanging out with your Dolphins, AD and DT episodes airing every first and third Wednesday with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, the Dolphin Dive dives into the stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. Get our archives by going to Lemoyne's tab on wakeupcalldt.com, subscribing to our youtube.com /Wake Up Call DT channel, and of course, for more information on your Dolphins by going to LeMoyneDolphins.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively of your Marywood University Pacers. It's Pacer Pride all throughout the month and all throughout the year on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for my alma mater. You can check out the Pacers every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, hanging out here where sports meets life with our specials featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration of Marywood University in Scranton, Pennsylvania, 2 hours south of Syracuse, New York, and almost a straight line, and a great opportunity to head there if you're from Central and Upstate New York and give them an opportunity at Marywood University. You can catch our stories and all of our specials by going to the Marywood tab on wakeupcalldt.com. You can also subscribe to our youtube.com /Wake Up Call DT channel, and of course, for more information, go to marywoodpacers.com. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are also exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. Very happy to be here with the Bobcats, bringing you Bobcat Buzz every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Unprecedented, uninterrupted coverage of the Bobcats in a spotlight that they've never had before. Bryan and Stratton is here with you on our BSC SYR tab on wakeupcalldt.com. You can also find our information and our specials with Bryan and Stratton by going to the youtube.com/wakeupcalldt channel and clicking subscribe. For more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. With that being stated here on the show, I want to thank you for being a part of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I want to shout out my incredible guests inside the Cafe Kubal studios. I want to give a big thanks to Papa Joe and his return, which was incredible. And I feel like it went by way too fast. Love to get Papa Joe on as much as we can and always appreciate him. As well as starting off our Commissioner Central series with the SoCon Commissioner, Jim Schaus, followed by Big South Commissioner Kyle Kallander, both rejoining the broadcast here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our Commissioner Central series. A new series taking a look at the commissioners and executive directors of the collegiate athletic world, letting us know their thoughts on their individual conference, as well as the bigger picture things and topics that are affecting collegiate athletics today. To take a look around the country at what our leaders are thinking, you can come right here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Get your popcorn ready for all of the fantastic events that you're going to be joining and watching and going to and sitting at home and celebrating by going to MaandPazPopcorn.com and having them deliver it right to your doorstep. For those of you in Central New York, you can go and see what it's like to live in an amusement park every single day by going to Ma and Paz on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. In the meantime, from the Cafe Kubal Studios, this is Wake Up Call. You are awesome. I'll talk with you soon. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. Head out to Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, as well as inside of their giant behemoth of a brown striped building on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at their Sweetheart Corner location, which is also a drive-through in North Syracuse. With that being said, God bless, no stress, do your best. Thank you again to Papa Joe.